and this one went through a little bit of a roller coaster. The next one that we are going to look at is this stunning. Just looking at this plant in the camera kind of makes me forget what I was trying to say. So let's start that over. These two leaves are pretty much dominated by the Besseae Aff characteristics. But I'll put a picture up in here where it was earlier in the year where this plant actually threw out a leaf that looked very much like Clarinervium. So that's why it kind of looks so spidery. Goeiemorgen, goeiemiddag, goeienaand. Whether it is morning, afternoon, or evening where you are, it's always a good time to watch some plant YouTube. My name is Shane, and in today's video, we are going to be looking at 10 of my Besseae Affs and Besseae Aff hybrids. As promised in last Sunday's video, I'm going to be showing you 5 plants that is in a wick system and another 5 that is not in a wick system. And of course, the watering for those are completely different. If you want to check out that video on how I went from watering once a week to once a month, I'll put a card up here so that you can have a look at that after you've watched this video. So with no further ado, let's get into the video. The very first plant that we are going to be looking at is the very first Besseae Aff that came into this house. So here is a picture of the Besseae Aff that I got back in September 2024. This one I did get from Ecuagenera, so I think during the transit between Ecuagenera and South Africa, this plant actually developed quite a lot of shock. So you can see that from the 2 yellowing leaves. When I looked at the root system, it actually didn't look that bad, but it was quite minimal. So I decided to pot it up in a quite small pot so that the root system can establish itself. And I potted it up in pon, as you guys know, that is my preferred substrate. And in a month's time, the root system just went crazy. It had a really robust root system and it started then to work on a new leaf. The third leaf that you can see on this picture, it also died off eventually. But in November 2024, I'll show you a picture of what the first leaf looked like in my care. It's a little bit small, but it is expected from an import. At least the plant is growing and the root system looks amazing. This plant quickly grew up to be really beautiful. I think about 2 months after this picture was taken, the root system started to also creep on the top of that small pot, and I had to repot it in a much bigger pot. Here is a picture of what the plant looked like in May. So there you can already see that the leaves are quite large, and this is what an emergent looks like. It is so beautiful. I absolutely love the brownish red color that it gets, and it has this really bright veins on it. Absolutely beautiful. But let me show you what the plant looks like today. So here is what the plant looks like today. How stunning. This is pretty much a hardened off leaf. There is a new one on the way, as you can see over here, and there's another older one. So this one got damaged during the winter move, but it still looks quite good. But this one looks quite pristine. I absolutely love it. On the back side, it also retains some of that red that it got during the emergent. But it's also flowering. I did try to pollinate this one, but it was unsuccessful, so I'll probably cut that off real soon. But not to worry, there is a new inflow on the way as well. So this plant I absolutely love. I absolutely love the fact that it has a little bit of boulet type of texture. Not as much as the luxuriance, of course, but it has this kind of wavy type of texture over here. But I love the fact that this one is a little bit more round on top and then it gets a little bit more elongated towards the bottom. Similarly, the veins also does a little bit of a curve and then goes down. The dark leaf color and the white veins is just so pretty. I absolutely love this plant. One of the plants that is not in a wick system, so I kind of have to water this one and keep a reservoir so that it is about 1 to 1.5 centimeter above the end of the cash pot. So this is the beautiful Anthurium Besseae Aff. Very first one. we are going to look at the Magnificum cross with Magnificum cross Besseae Aff. So Magnificum is the seed parent, which is also the mother plant, and then a Magnificum cross Besseae Aff is the pollen parent. I also got this plant in the same shipment actually as the Besseae Aff that I just showed you, which was in September 2024. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of when I initially received it, but it was quite a medium-sized plant, and the earliest picture that I could find was back in January 2024, and this is what the plant looked like. The leaf that you can see all the way on the right, that I think is one of the original leaves that it came with. So this is one of those plants that grow really, really, really fast. So it was in my grow tent for a short while, and it soon outgrew that very, very quickly, and I decided to put it in ambient, and it didn't lose any speed at all. This is a very, very resilient plant. It hardly gets any brown leaves to it. It is just such a hardy plant. Even the emergent leaves harden off very, very quickly. So it goes through the different colors. So it starts as more of a brownish kind of color, and then it goes to this color that you can see in this picture, which is more of a yellow type of color, but it goes through it so quickly, and you really have to enjoy it for that short period of time. But not to worry, the next leaf is probably on its way really quickly as well. So let me show you what this plant looks like today. And this is her today. She kind of looks like a spider, and that is my fault. I actually have this plant in between two windows. So there's a window on the side and there's a window on the side. And pretty much a week and a half after I had it in that spot, the leaves started to turn backward towards the windows, towards the light. So that's why it kind of looks so spidery. But I did move it to a spot where the windows or it gets light from the front, and hopefully all of the leaves should be moving all the way to the front. This plant, like I say, is super hardy, and I think it gets it from the Magnificent parent. This one can tolerate a lot of underwatering. Because the plant is so large, it kind of goes through the water much quicker than some of the other plants do. And sometimes I do neglect it, just in the sense that it has to wait a day or two to get watered after it actually needs water. But this plant is so resilient that it actually doesn't show that it is underwatered. As you can see from this new leaf, there is absolutely no damage on it. You'd probably be right, but all of the other leaves have the watering inconsistent damage. But that is not really from that. That is pretty much because of the winter move. For some other reason, this one also took it quite bad and had the reaction of creating these brown type of tips on the leaves. And I think that is because there is quite a lot of root that is already out of the cash pot that is just hanging about on the inside of this pot. And because during the move I didn't keep a reservoir, that week that it was in transit, it dried out those roots. And that's why the leaves started to get this browning on it. But other than that, this plant doesn't have any problems. So this one probably went from one of my least favorite plants to look at to one of my absolute favorites to look at every day. And as you can see on this leaf, I think the shape is not as round. The veins are very muted. It's more like a green type of veins. And I don't think that that is really my vibe. But with this new leaf, I think probably because it is maturing, it is getting a little bit of a different form. So it has more of a distinct heart-shaped leaf, and then it has a very bright vein. And this is what I really like in plants. I think it looks very much like a Magnificum, and you can see very little of the Besseae Aff traits in here. And I think it is because it was crossed with a Magnificum twice. And in both times, the seed parent was Magnificum. So I think with seedlings, they normally get their dominant features from the seed parent. So I think because of the double mag cross, more of the mag is coming through in this plant. This one lives in ambient in the living room, so it's an absolute joy to just glance over at this one while I'm sitting on the couch. So yeah, Magnificum crossed with Mag crossed Besseae Aff. The next one we're going to be looking at is the Anthurium Besseae Aff crossed with Clarinervium. Absolutely love a Clarinervium hybrid. Here is what the plant looked like when I got it back in April 2024. So it looks like quite an established plant. For the next couple of months, this plant did not do anything. It had a healthy root system, it was in quite high humidity, it had good light, but it just did absolutely nothing. It was winter, so I think maybe the lower temperatures it doesn't really like. But in the middle of spring, this plant finally sprung into action. So probably around October, this plant started to work on not just one leaf, but two leaves. So it grew two growth points and pushed out the most beautiful two leaves from those two growth points. And here I'll show you what the plant looked like back in November when it got those two new leaves. So as you can see, really beautiful. Over the next couple of months, the plants still continued to put out leaves, but I wouldn't say that it necessarily put out bigger leaves. So it just kept on putting out leaves that was pretty much consistent with that size. One of the growth points did die off as well, so the plant then continued just with one growth point. Let me show you what it looks like today. And this is her. I actually really like the color of this plant, and it has that beautiful neon white type of veins in it that is quite striking. I absolutely love it. So this is the second last leaf, and then this is the newest leaf. This one pretty much hardened off within the last couple of days. It still has a little bit of way to go, but I think this is pretty much what it's going to be. I absolutely love this plant. It has such a nice dark foliage, and then it has a little bit of a wide sinus. It also has that little bit of white neon type of veins. These two leaves are pretty much dominated by the Besseae Aff characteristics, but I'll put a picture up in here where it was earlier in the year where this plant actually threw out a leaf that looked very much like Clarinervium, and I fell back in love with this plant. This is so beautiful. I absolutely love Clarinervium looking hybrids. So we'll see what this one does. It's still a beautiful plant. So hopefully now that we are back in spring and next month is November, hopefully the plant is going to give us some beautiful leaves, and it actually also starts to size up a little bit more. But really nice plant, I would say. Next up is the Besseae Aff crossed with Forgetii, crossed again with the red bane dog phoenix. So here's what the plant looked like when I got it back in February 2025. So it's kind of only been a couple of months, I would say about 6-7 months that I've had it. It is an absolutely beautiful plant. At the time, I was going through my red bane dog phoenix hybrid era, and I absolutely had to get this plant. It is just so beautiful. And here is what the plant looks like. This is the second newest leaf. There is a new little one on the way. So that is the second last one. I absolutely love the fact that this one is so dark and that it has the red veins that it gets from the red vein dog phoenix. It is so beautiful. This plant is a little finicky with its watering. If I do let the reservoir dry out just a little bit, then the leaves start to yellow like this one. You can see that little bit of discoloration on the leaf. But this plant is absolutely beautiful. It has the most amazing new emergence. Not when it's this size, but it is much bigger than this one. I'll show you a video up here of an Instagram reel that I made of this new emergence. And I walked past this plant for quite a couple of days because similarly to this one, it kind of opened on the back of the newest leaf and I didn't want to turn it around, and when I eventually did, I was shocked. My jaw literally fell to the floor. I absolutely love the new emergent on this leaf, or when it gets to pretty much more of a hardened off type of state. This one is quite small. I absolutely love the minimal veins that it has, and then of course the red that it gets that I just mentioned. It also does a little bit of a cupping action, not like the Doriaki that does cupping to the front of the leaf, but this one does a little bit of a cupping to the back of the leaf. I actually can't wait for this one to size up quite nicely so that I can see what the really big leaves are going to look like. The back of the leaf is also quite nice. It actually retains a lot of that red color from the red bay dog phoenix, I guess, in the back of the leaves. And also the veins you can see is quite red as well. And that's why in the front it does come across quite red too. This one grows quite quickly. I think I got this leaf not too long ago, and it is, like I say, already working on another one. So I'm hoping that now that it is quite settled in the house, it is going to grow like a weed. And in no time, I'm going to look at some big, beautiful red vein type of leaves. So yeah, this is the beautiful Anthurium Besseae Aff cross Forgetii cross red vein dot phoenix. So the next one we are going to be looking at is the Magnificum cross with Besseae Aff. And this one went through a little bit of a roller coaster. So it did quite well when it initially came into the house and then took a little bit of plunge, and now it's on the up and up again. But let me show you what the plant looked like when I initially got it. So I don't have a picture of when I initially got it, I think around April, but I do have a picture of what the plant looked like in May when I grew the first leaf. So large leaf that you can see in this picture, that is the first leaf in my care. That is what the leaf looked like when it initially came into this house. So you can see that it was a little bit small. So the person that I bought it from was more into orchids and not into anthuriums. So they didn't do a lot with the plant. So it just got the bare minimum, and that's why the plant didn't really do a lot in their care. And as soon as it came here and I gave it a couple of nutrients, gave it some good conditions, it immediately sized up quite nicely. Here is another angle of that same plant that we just looked at. This is the angle from the new leaf. So as you can see, absolutely beautiful. I was so smitten when I got this leaf. This is probably one of the first anthuriums in my collection, and this was probably one of the ones that really got me into anthuriums. After this one, I probably wanted to collect all of them. It was just so beautiful. But after this leaf, there was another one that came really, really fast, and I'll show you a picture of what that looked like. But as you can see in this picture, this plant was still in the soil that it came with, and that was kind of my downfall. I didn't initially pot it in the pond that I prefer, and I kept it in that substrate, and it just wasn't working for my watering style. And this plant actually went downhill very quickly after this. I think I must have overwatered it, and it got root rot, and it also got stem rot. When I eventually took it out of this pot, it only had a little bit of viable stem in it. I felt so bad that I didn't want to throw it away completely, and I decided to just put it in perlite and close it up with some plastic on the top and just see what happens. And let me show you what actually happened. This is what the plant looks like today. So, like I say, this plant lost pretty much all of its leaves, all of its roots, and I had to put it in perlite. And as you can see here, it almost had to start over from scratch. So as you can imagine, it was quite devastating going from that massive plant that I just showed you to only getting these tiny little leaves. But it did quite well in the perlite, and it is also in a high humidity area. So you can see the roots are absolutely crazy. But look at the leaves, it's sized up so nicely. There's the next one, nice size up, and this is the second oldest leaf, so quite a nice size up. And here we have the newer leaf, and if I look at the veining structure of these two, I can immediately see that it is going to be quite big. So I'm not quite sure if you can see, but the veins on here is there's only a few veins even on the top here, but on this one there is quite a lot of veins going down, as well as some more on top, and something that this leaf doesn't have, even more veins on top of that leaf. So that is a good indication that this leaf is going to be much bigger than this one. This one is still in the perlite. I haven't repotted it, and this is a very, very, very fast growing plant. As soon as I want to repot it, it puts out a new leaf. So I think I'm going to monitor this one quite closely. And as soon as this one hardens off, I'm then going to give it just a bigger vessel. I'm going to try a new experiment with this one to grow it in perlite. So it is in perlite, but I'm going to give it a bigger pot and grow it the same way as I do with my pond and my liquor in a semi-hydro type of setup, but just use perlite instead of pond and lacquer. Absolutely love this plant. It does come with this beautiful red emergence. I think the light is probably blocking the color of this leaf out, but believe you me, it is so beautiful. And then it hardens off to this really dark green color with the lighter veins that I absolutely love. So yeah, this one is the Magnificum cross with Besseae Aff. So those are all of the Besseae Aff and Besseae Aff hybrids that I wanted to show you today that I got back in 2024. So all of those ones have the non-wick system. So that means it is in a reservoir and it has about 1 to 1.5 centimeter water reservoir at the bottom of the cash pond. So now I'm going to show you plants that I got in 2025 that I started using the wick system on. I'm not going to show you pictures of when I got these plants because those leaves are pretty much still on these plants. So I'll be able to show it to you that way. So let's get into it. And here is the very first one. This is a Besseae Aff, believe it or not. I absolutely love this one. I always wanted a Besseae Aff that has almost like a flat sinus and that has minimal veins. So this one kind of tickles that fancy because it has a really wide sinus compared to the Besseae Aff that I showed you before, and it has very limited secondary veins. So a lot of primary veins, meaning that it's these ones. There's very limited veins that comes off of these primary veins. Absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait until this one grows up. This is the first leaf in my care. This is the newest leaf that is incoming, so this will only be the second one. So really excited to see what that one looks like. These are the two older leaves that the plant came with, so not a bad size. This is actually the newest leaf, but because it was unfurling while it was in transit, it didn't really size up quite nicely. But this one looks quite nice in terms of size, not in terms of the leaf damage, but this is the one that really hooked me when it looked quite nicer than this one. So yeah, I'll probably cut that off as soon as the new leaf hardens off, and then we can only look at the beautiful, nice new leaves. But yeah, quite different to the one that I showed you before, and that's what I absolutely love about Besseae Affs. And here we have the third and last Besseae Aff. Look at how different this one looks compared to all of the other ones. It is so round. So a little bit of the same shape as probably what the first one had, but these lobes are completely different. They're kind of overlapping on this leaf, and it has much more of a rounder shape. But it is so stunning. Absolutely love the veins on this one. So the reason why I actually got this one is because of the round leaves, but these are the older leaves that it came with. So not really looking that bad. What I really fell in love with this plant when I saw it initially are these leaves, and I actually thought that it would keep the minimal secondary veins on this one, and it would almost have more of a Forgetii type of veining structure, but not to be. This one is the first leaf in my care, and it actually does look like it has lots of secondary veinings, at least here on the top, but it still looks so beautiful. I absolutely love it. And that is the beauty of the Besseae Aff. It comes in a whole lot of different forms. And I think I mentioned on this channel already, Besseae Aff is actually not a recognized species yet. It doesn't have its own name. There's actually a Besseae that is already named as a species, and this one kind of looks like that. And that's why it is called Besseae Aff, because Aff is a abbreviation for the full word Affinus. And Affinus is a Latin word that pretty much means similar or connected to, kind of looks like. So that's why it is called Besseae Aff, because it looks like the Besseae. But I'll show you the true Besseae on here. Not looking the greatest. I really prefer the Besseae Aff for sure. They are much prettier. The next plant that I want to show you is this Besseae Aff cross with Regale. Yes, Regale is one of the parents of this beautiful plant, and you can absolutely see it. It does have a lot of the Besseae Aff, especially the veining, but you can definitely see some of the Regale coming through on this plant. So it kind of has the best of both worlds. This is the newest leaf. When it emerges, it has a beautiful, beautiful red color. And I think it gets it from the Regale. It is just so stunning. And then eventually it hardens off to this really dark color. And then it also has the bright veins. You can see the theme of this video. I really like my dark green velvets and the really bright veins. So yeah, this one is just so beautiful. These are the leaves that it came with. Actually, these two leaves is what the plant came with, and the root system was also quite small, and that's why I put it in the small pot. The roots are looking quite nice, and pretty soon this plant is probably going to need a bigger pot again. And I cannot wait. If it's going to produce bigger leaves like this, I am here for it. So this is the first leaf in my care. So as you can see, quite a nice size up. And then this is the second leaf, even bigger size up. So I think this one is going to do quite well. If I give it a bigger pot, it is going to grow up to be quite big and beautiful in no time. So this is my beautiful Besseae Aff cross. The next one that we are going to look at is this stunning. Just looking at this plant in the camera kind of makes me forget what I was trying to say. So let's start that over. This one is my absolutely stunning Anthurium Crystallinum crossed with Besseae Aff. That is the seed parent, and then it was crossed with a Papililaminum. I recently posted this plant on Instagram, and it's probably the plant that has got the most views that I've had in the last couple of months. And I got quite a lot of DMs on how stunning this plant actually is. I absolutely love it. It is such an interesting looking plant. This plant definitely does not have dominant characteristics of one of the parent plants, but it got a good mix of pretty much all of them. You can see a little bit of crystal in there, you can see a little bit of Besseae Aff veining in there, you can see a little bit of the Papililaminum shape that is on this plant. It is just such a absolutely stunning plant. It does have a new leaf on the way. It did struggle to come out of the sheath, but luckily I don't see any damage on it, so I think it should be good. These are the older leaves that it came with, so definitely a few that was on this plant, which also then speaks about the resiliency of this plant. You can see that there is absolutely no damage on these older leaves. Even in the new environment, it is sizing up quite nicely. Look at that nice size up in my care. Absolutely love that it is loving my conditions. So I can't wait for this plant to grow up and see what it actually looks like. This is my absolutely stunning Anthurium crystal cross Besseae Aff cross Papililaminum. Well, not look at it. Beautiful. Last but certainly not least is this Anthurium Papililaminum cross with Besseae Aff. Look at how absolutely stunning this plant is. I really like the fact that it is so nice and round. It does emerge with a kind of reddish, brownish color. So a little bit of a muted color tone to it. And then it hardens off first to a little bit of a lighter green with such a beautiful sheen. The camera doesn't do it justice. And then finally it hardens off to this beautiful, very dark, almost black kind of color. And I absolutely love this leaf. It looks like it has this really bright vein in here, and then it bursts into kind of more of a muted kind of tone. It is just so beautiful. It is quite different to the plants that I have in my collection. So it kind of brings that little bit of a different aspect to it. Absolutely beautiful. This one is a little bit of an overachiever. This is one of the fastest growing ones in that batch of plants that I bought a couple of months ago. And I absolutely love that. These are the two leaves that it came with. So as you can see, it really sized up quite nicely in my care. So what I'm doing is definitely working. So this is the absolutely amazing Anthurium Papililaminum cross with Besseae Aff. Alright, so those are the 10 Besseae Aff and Besseae Aff hybrids that I wanted to show you today. The last 5 that we looked at is in a self-watering pot that does have a wick. And the first 4 we looked at is in a self-watering pot but doesn't have a wick. And what I really wanted to show you today is, again, like I said last week, there is no right or wrong way of doing things in this hobby. It's all about what works for you. If you want to check out that video about how I water my plants up here, and there I speak about the 2 methods that I just showed you and how different the watering is for those. The one is very involved, which probably requires water every week and a half, and the other one pretty much requires water once a month. So it's all about what works for you. If you are a person that likes to water, that likes to spend time with your plants, watering those plants, then the non-wick system is probably going to work for you. But if you are someone that is a little bit busier these days and still want beautiful plants but just don't have as much time to water, then the wick system is definitely going to be for you. I'll put the link to the video up here on top so that you can also have a look at that video. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video looking at my Besseae and Besseae Aff hybrids. Besseae Aff is really one of my favorite hybrids to collect. As you can see, the species Besseae Aff already looks vastly different. So you can imagine, as we just looked at these 10 plants, all of them pretty much looks very different to each other. So that is what Besseae Aff does. It brings you the variety that you probably need in your collection. So I don't blame anybody that have quite a lot of Besseae Affs in their collection, because they can vary one to the couple of days. So next week I'm going to Cape Town for a couple of days and I'm taking you along. I'm going to the Stellenbosch plant swap and marker that is going to be on Saturday, and on Wednesday I'm going to show you what I'm going to be packing and what exactly I'm going to be taking along with me to the plant swap. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, have a lekker rest of your day. Bye bye.